All right, let's move along here to Alex.
Hi Bart, thanks
How's it
for
going?
having me on.
Good.
So I've got a hand from the bike 5-5.
All right, so the bike 5-5. I know that that's a 1,000 cap game. And that is a heavily raked slash dropped game. I've been getting a few different emails recently where I've kind of been trying to wrap my head around this because I got an email this week from a guy who said, well, I play in this 1-3 game where it's like a five, I think it's a 10% rake up to like $10. And the Encore in Boston, where around where I live now, is kind of out of control like that. But it's still better than a drop game. The California games are the worst because I don't know if it's a percentage in a rake game up to a cap. I don't know if that really changes your preflop strategy all that much because it's a percentage. So if the pot's small, they're not taking the full collection. But it certainly should change your preflop strategy in a drop game where once the flop comes, the entire collection is taken, which is like $7. Then they take an extra on the river or something like that at the bike. But okay, so 5-5 at the bike.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we're really deep here. I'm 3K effective
Three
and
K
villain
effective.
covers.
Okay, so wow, that is very deep. 3K effective. Okay.
So there's a limp under the gun, and I
Okay.
raise to 25.
From where?
In middle position.
With
King 10 of hearts,
King of Hearts, 10 of Hearts. Okay.
and then it folds to the villain on the button who 3 bets to 110.
So button 3 bets to 110. I assume the limper folds.
Yep, and I
Okay.
just make the call.
Limper folds and hero calls. So this guy goes over just over 4x. He's driving the limper out. You have one of the worst suited Broadways here, but you are deep. So it's probably pretty close here.
Yeah, I was thinking. I think sometimes I would 4-bet this given it's a middle position button dynamic, but
Yeah, I mean, I think you can definitely throw in some 4 bets here too. You can definitely throw in some 4 bets here. But I think that a lot of times when people throw, like what they'll do is like they'll 4 bet for a really small, like too small of a sizing at the stack depth. When you guys are legit 600 big blinds and they'll make it like 3x, and then the 3 bet range is just always calling pretty much to the 3x sizing in position this deep, and you don't have even that strong of a hand. So that's where I think sometimes people will make a little bit of a sizing mistake if they decide to 4 bet here. But you probably could have partials of call, fold, or 4 bet. But okay, so you call pots like 220.
yeah. And background, the villain is a very solid, like Euro Pro. He normally plays like 10-20, the biggest public game, but on this night there was no 5-10 or 10-20
Well,
running.
here's the thing too. I mean, here's if he's a solid player, like a winning player, then you can absolutely base your decision when you have partials and take the partial where you just get out of the hand. Because if he's winning more, he's going to have an advantage over you if he's in position, right? So if this one's close and I'm against a winning player, I might just default to fold, right? I mean, I don't think there's anything illogical about that.
Yeah, it was pretty close, but I just chose to call since we're so deep.
Okay, so 220 to the flop.
And the flop is Jack of Hearts, Eight of Spades,
Hmm.
6 of Hearts.
Okay, so you flop a front door flush draw, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And I check, and villain C bets 80, so about 2/3 pot. I mean,
Okay.
a 1/3 pot,
Right,
sorry.
right, right. 1/3 pot. Okay.
And I just make the call, so the pot's about 390 going to the turn.
So here's the thing about this. Like, I can give you my sort of live advice in this spot, but because I don't know off the top of my head, because people will sort of misuse like sims because they never sim a spot like this, like at this stack depth. Now, it seems to me on the surface that his small sort of c bet is probably proper because I don't know if he's necessarily 3 betting sixes off, so you might have a little bit more of a nut advantage, but he still has an overpair advantage. So I would imagine that sometimes at this stack depth you can do some check raising here. You've got a backdoor here, with the 10 in your hand here too. But I think calling is fine as well. But you can't just let somebody 1/3, 1/4 you all the time. Now, obviously, if he uses larger sizing, then there's far less of a frequency of check raising.
Yeah, I was thinking of check raising, because I interpreted this as like more of a range bet, but
Right.
given that in this situation I would be 4 betting off jacks a lot of the time, I figured,
Would you be 4 betting
um,
off jacks here at this stack depth?
um, I think I would like a good portion of the time when if
When
the
there's
button.
nobody, no one's when your head's up.
Um.
I mean, it seems like jacks would be a pure call here, but
Okay.
yeah. All right, so 390 to the turn.
And the turn's the eight of hearts.
Okay, this is really really interesting because it's a 3-bet pot. So if you were to take this and put it in a single raise pot and you were in like the big blind closing the action pre-flop, you can have a lot of leads on turn, especially when middle pair pairs up. But usually in a 3-bet pot, when flushes come in, if it's sort of a balance thing. People want to play like a balance, and they will check the turn. You also don't have the nut flush too. There's something to be said about that as well. It's really hard to kind of construct a balanced leading range in a 3-bet pot when a flushing card comes in. I'll say that. I'm not saying that against some people, it's not the right play to make the most amount of money. Like, for example, if I had called because the guy wasn't a strong player and because I thought that I could always stack him if I made 2-pair plus against like a range of like aces or something like that, I might be doing a lot of leading on this turn card because I know he's not going to fold and I know he's going to check back. So those are the two sides of it.
Yeah. So I actually chose to lead here, figuring that a lot of his hands, like maybe an ace jack or an overpair, would just check back this turn,
Mm-hmm.
and figuring that I have a lot more 8x in my range and I have a lot more suited hands.
I mean,
I figured it's a good card to lead on sometimes.
the other thing that I would probably default, the other reason why I would sort of default to checking here instead of leading, because if he is a strong player that plays high stakes like the background that you gave, he should be constructing some double barrels that are logical here too, like the ace of hearts across ace queen. You know what I mean? Like ace king, ace queen with the ace of hearts. And then you sort of just play it as a check call the entire way. And he might even, if you're playing against a strong player, he might even value own himself too. So you get like the best of all worlds. So that's why against a strong player, if I was in there, I would tend to play this as a check. How much did you lead for again? I'm sorry.
I led for 2/3.
So you bet
I led for 260 into like
260.
390 ish,
Okay.
and he makes a call, so it's like 900 going to the river.
So button calls. It's kind of interesting. So the pot now is about 900. It was interesting. I mean, I don't think that he can just, like, if he has a overpair without a heart, I mean, he's got to continue to call, right?
I would think so.
I mean, he's not going to just pitch black kings. That would be somewhat of a nitty fold. So he doesn't always have to have a high heart here. So 900 to the river, okay.
And the river's a 3 of diamonds, so just a brick.
Okay.
And I continue to bet for value, targeting like overpair with the heart, maybe ace jack with the heart.
Yeah.
And I bet 2/3 again, so I go 700 into 900.
Wow. Okay.
And then he thinks for a little, and then he just shoves it in my face.
Looks like it's probably 4,200, 19 to call. What? Yeah, 4,200, 1,900 to call. So you're getting over 2 to 1. I mean, here's the thing, like, with your backstory of this, and especially with some of the logical hands that we've sort of talked about here, yeah, the river in live play is under bluffed, but if the guy's capable, and he might run this with the ace of hearts, or might run some stupid play with like jack 10 suited because like he blocks like pocket jacks, then I'm probably going to click the call button. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, maybe a couple of years ago I've been like, oh, this is always a fold, but it seems to be like a trend here. If someone is sort of aware, you kind of have played it fairly unorthodox here too. I'm wondering if he ever thinks that you might have an 8 or that you would fold a small flush, but I can tell you with that backstory, I would have a hard time folding here. I would really have a hard time folding here.
Yeah, I did. So I tanked for a while, and while I was doing this, I was trying to count his like um his value combos ish. If he's three betting all like the suited wheel aces, um, the heart combos, and I found I think like 9 combos of value. So I needed to find like 4 to 5 bluffs since I was getting 2 to 1 to make it profitable.
Well, what if could he be three betting like any suited ace though? I mean, ace deuce through ace five, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and a 9. That's 7, and then like ace 10, ace queen. King.
Well, I have the king and the 10 of hearts.
Oh, right. So yeah, but then he can have jack jack here too, right? So that's another
Yeah,
3.
there's the 3 combos of Jack Jack. He can also have quads if he does 3-bet 8 sometimes.
Right. So what you would be looking for here is you would be looking for a less than 2-1. If you were getting 2-1, let's say you were getting straight you're getting a little bit more than 2-1, but you'd be looking for it, like he can't have more value combos than 2-1. Meaning, like if he had like 9 value combos and 3 bluffs, you can't call. But if he had 8 value combos and 4 bluffs, you could call. So it's kind of a shortcut way to do it, and you're getting a little bit more than 2-1 here.
Yeah, and I did call, and
Okay.
he turned over Ace of Hearts, Ace Jack offsuit with Ace of Hearts.
That's what I mean. I mean, this seems to be a trend, man. I just kind of remember. I don't remember the result, but it just seems like people are playing like a lot of these kind of. If you take this line with the king high flush, I think you kind of open yourself up to this where you have to call. Now, someone said check call the river. As played, I'm not exactly sure about that. I'm not a huge fan of check calling the river. Even in this particular scenario, but your whole lead on the turn kind of opens yourself up to this a little bit.
Yeah,
So
looking back, I didn't. I mean, in the moment, I thought leading turned because I just really didn't want it to get checked back. That was my thinking.
right, right. But I mean, if you're playing against high level competition, there are reasons to not, to not do that. But I can definitely get on board with the call. I mean, I would have called with your backstory, but thank you very much. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.